Welcome to episode 10 of the Barnes on Bama podcast. I'm your host, Owen Barnes, and we've got a lot to discuss. First things first, it's March Madness, and Alabama is in a bracket. But before we break down the bracket and what path Alabama has to making a round of 32, 16, Elite 8, Final Four, before making their run in March, we've got a few things to discuss. Firstly, that Nate Oats has signed an extension and will be the head coach at the University of Alabama for quite a few more years. And as well, going to quickly talk through the fact that we are losing an assistant coach come this offseason. And going to quickly break down the Florida game, what went wrong, what I think happened, before jumping into a breakdown of the bracket that Alabama is in, which is the West region, looking at their path, and then doing a quadrant breakdown of the four teams that are in their pod for Spokane. So let's get right into the show. So first things first, I do want to talk through Nate Oats' contract. This was announced just before the Florida game tipped off on Friday. There was an announcement by Greg Byrne that Nate Oats was being extended, and there were a lot of reports that Nate Oats' contract, as well as some others, was up for discussion on the appointment with the board of directors this Monday. That has happened, and we do have some contract details. So first things first, in terms of raw pay, Nate Oats is going to start out at $5 million. It's going to go up over the course of the deal, ending in 2030. And he's going to start out as about the sixth highest paid coach in the country. He's going to end roughly at the $6.7 million range, which as of today would rank him somewhere in between third and fourth in the country in pay. Very, very big to secure Nate Oats on this deal. The bigger piece of this deal is that for the first 2 years, it comes with an $18 million buyout. Over and over, Nate Oats has said that he does not want to leave, does not want to go anywhere. However, he has been linked to a lot of jobs, whether it be Louisville, whether it be Michigan State, Michigan, any of these places where, he's from Michigan or he's a super hot young coach. And so he's linked to a lot of these places. And so that buyout number being $18 million should, curb a lot of that, as $18 million to buy a coach out of an existing deal is one of the highest in the sport, if not the highest. And it's over $8 million higher than what his buyout was today. So it's super huge to see that. Nate Oats is off the list of potential coaches for any of these teams. If you see him on any list here coming up, do not worry about it. He's not going anywhere. And that is awesome to see that. Like I said, he's talked about, loving the state, loving this area. And it seems that he has, signed the deal that was going to keep him here for a very long time. Then the other news that we heard here more recently on the coaching front is that Austin Claunch is being hired as the new head coach at Texas San Antonio, UTSA. For those that remember or read the article that I wrote over the summer, or know anything about Austin Claunch, he was the previous head coach at Nicholls State last year. Nate Oats hired him from a sitting head coach position to become assistant coach. Starting the year, he led the offense, and over the summer, from my understanding, he led the offense. And then after the 6-5 skid to start the season, Nate Oats looked at the coaching staff, shuffled some things around, and my understanding is he helped lead the defense for the latter portion of the year. I will say Claunch is a huge recruiter. He was a big reason. He was one of the first coaches Nate hired, and he was a big reason that helped put together this team, as well as has done a lot of recruiting as it comes to 2025, 2026, and beyond. So this is somebody that has done a really good job. It's really good to see him be able to, move from head coaching job to head coaching job, and in 1 year, nonetheless, get a job that he would not have gotten had he not come to Alabama. So, really proud of him. Nate Oats talks about, he's not going to tell somebody not to take something if they are guaranteed, a better path. So Noah Clowney was somebody he mentioned. Noah Clowney's set to be a first rounder. Definitely go in the draft. You're a first rounder. Claunch, same way. Hey, you got a job in a good spot in a good league. That's the job you want. Let's take it. So that is huge. As expected, Claunch is going to be staying with the team through the conclusion of March Madness. Oats mentioned that this is Claunch's first NCAA tournament, so he wants to try to make a run, and will be with the team throughout the conclusion of the March Madness tournament. And then, following that, we'll pick up his duties with UTSA. So, now that we've got all the coaching things out of the way, I want to quickly break down what happened in the Florida game, talk through that game, and then don't want to waste too much time, and then we'll get into the March Madness bracket. So on Friday of the SEC tournament, Alabama played Florida in the late game, and Alabama came out looking really, really well. They get a super hot start. They go they're up 8-0. The defensive effort and intensity looked really good. The rebounding effort and intensity was really good. Alabama was leading in that stat. Alabama was doing a good job on offense, and it really seemed like the team had found a bit of a groove following their, sloppy game against Arkansas and previous losses in the games there before. And Alabama, we knew was going to be shorthanded. It was announced just before the game that Latrell Reitzel was going to be a full go, same as he was for the Arkansas game, but Rylan Griffin was going to be able to go for this Florida game. However, he was going to be on a minutes restriction. So we had an idea that Rylan was going to play. He was not going to be 100%, in the minutes he did play, and he was more than likely going to be on a minutes restriction. So we did have that to contend with. So the game gets going, and Alabama does, like I said, they start out really well. They have a really good start. They are hitting shots, and they're having a lot of success. And then it just felt like a switch flipped. It felt like Florida had a game plan and stuck to that game plan no matter how the start happened. And then it really felt like the defense that Florida was putting up was stopping our offense. And a lot of that was Alabama, for anybody that knows, the offense thrives, and, the way that they get their offense is off of a paint touch. And then the paint touch follows into a kick out for 3 or a driving cut in for 2. Or they really, thrive off that paint touch. There were quite a few moments of the game where Mark Sears would drive down low and jump before he got down low. He wouldn't be able to get the ball off before, without having a shot affected at the rim or blocked. Or he would get up off 2 feet and go to pass and either have a pass be deflected or stolen. He ends up having 4 turnovers in the game. And, Alabama, by and large, only has 8 turnovers total in the game. So for them, with the possession numbers that we have, that's not a ton. But it really felt like more than that. It felt like Florida was really causing havoc for us and was not allowing us to get into a rhythm on offense. Because of that rhythm on offense, Alabama has had a propensity this year that when the offense is not clicking at full bore, that the defense lags behind it. The offense drags down the defense. Nate Oats talks about having a defensive intensity no matter what happens with the offense, and this game was an example of that not happening. The defense started going down with it. Florida started making shots. Then Alabama would, have a late closeout to a shooter or foul a shooter. Florida does not have the free throw issues they had in game 1 of the SEC tournament. They end up going 31 of 36 from the line. They end up shooting 35% from three. They put up a 1.27, looking here, points per possession. So Florida ends up having a game and, doing whatever they really wanted against Alabama, and Alabama could not stop them. There was moments at the end of the game where Nate Oats was, urging the team to press more, and it felt to a degree like the team had given up. And I don't mean that in the sense of, there was no intensity or no fight, because they ended up, they were down over 20 at one point. They ended up only losing by 14, and you could tell there was definitely a fight to the team at the very end. But it was almost a too little, too late scenario. There was comments made by Todd Golden, Florida's coach, that, were asking about this game, and he said, we thought we found something in Gainesville, and we're going to keep the scout how we had it. We're going to do exactly what we did in Gainesville, and we're going to try to use that same scout for this game here. And to me, it looked like the scout worked perfectly. It looked like whatever it was that Florida found in game 2, right? Alabama wins game 1 in Coleman. Game 2 in Gainesville, they run us out of the gym. And then in this game in the SEC tournament, it feels like whatever it was that Florida had found just works to perfection. So I think that this is definitely a situation where Nate Oates' offensive style in this game was not clicking. Maybe that was because of how Todd Golden was defending it, how the team, how they had it set up to be defended. Mix that in with some off games down low from, Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, Nick Pringle had a few misses down low. He ends up having a pretty good game with a double-double, but just in general, Alabama does not have the efficiency game that it had in some prior ones, and it ends up causing Alabama to lose the game, partially due to the offensive standpoint, but largely due to the defense lagging behind due to the offense not being there. So that is, kind of what we want to talk about. Nate Oates, was talking about the bracket, and we'll go through who's going to be Alabama's first opponent as well as who they may be looking forward to in the round of 32. But the big thing that Nate mentioned is this is going to be the first time, this next game will be the first time that we have a full roster healthy with nobody on a minutes restriction, and that if the team will lock in and defend for 40 minutes in back-to-back games, they will see themselves in LA in the Sweet 16. This team has the ability to defend. They just have to show it. And I think we saw that in the Florida game. You see that in the beginning stages of the Florida game, that the effort, the intensity, and everything was there. Alabama just allowed the poor offense to dictate their defense. My hope is that with March Madness coming up and knowing that your next loss is the end of the season, that they're not going to let their their inability on offense to dictate their defense. And if that's the case, then Alabama will play the game that they're capable of, and they should be able to make a decent run in this tournament. I will highlight a couple of key players that had decent games in the tournament, in that game against Florida. The biggest one to me has got to be Nick Pringle. Nick Pringle ends up having a double-double, 12 points, 10 rebounds. He has 3 offensive rebounds, ties for the lead in the game in that standpoint. And Grant Nelson ends up having 3 blocks. Those are, in my opinion, some of the biggest ones. Aaron Estrada has 6 assists. Maybe not his best game overall, but 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. It was a fairly modest game by most of your key players. But Alabama still shows that they have the ability to defend. They have the ability to score. They have the ability to, play their guys. Nick Pringle is somebody that over the course of the season has been hit or miss on the effort and how he's played. As of late, Nick Pringle's been honestly one of your best players. That's huge because one of the places where Alabama has struggled is defending the interior, not having guys foul out, and, dominating the paint. Nick Pringle playing at the level he's playing at from a rebounding, from a defensive perspective, I think greatly increases the ceiling of this team and the floor of this team, quite frankly. So I think that this all leads to what will be a very good matchup and a very good tournament in Spokane. So let's get into the bracket. I want to first break down the West bracket, which is the bracket that Alabama finds itself in, the 16-team pod that Alabama finds itself in. Then we will go down the 4 teams that are going to be in Spokane for these first 2 rounds. So, got the bracket here in front of me. Alabama, as I mentioned, is in the West bracket. The West bracket consists of number 1, North Carolina will be playing the winner of Howard and Wagner, which is going to be on the game on Tuesday for the first 4. Then the 8-9 matchup is Mississippi State versus Michigan State. The 5-12 matchup, which is the 2 of the other teams in Alabama's 4 pod, is St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. Alabama is the 4 seed playing College of Charleston, the 13 seed. Then the 6 seed is Clemson playing 11 seed New Mexico. Then we have the 3 seed Baylor playing the 14 Colgate. The 7 seed Dayton playing 10 Nevada. And finally, the 2 seed Arizona playing the 15 Long Beach State. So overall, Alabama does not get the craziest of paths. If Alabama can win some games, this is definitely a bracket that shapes up pretty favorably for Alabama. I think this is one that Alabama has a pretty good shot of doing very well if they can play their style of basketball, if they can defend at the level that they're capable of. This is one that there is not a team on that slate that truly, truly scares you. I think that Arizona possibly scares me a little bit more than North Carolina even, but Alabama has played Arizona this year. And Alabama would have a little bit different game plan for Arizona if they met a second time. Also, that would be an Elite 8. So that's not even somebody, if we get to that point, you're thrilled no matter the result. But Arizona does not scare me in that bracket. Another one is Alabama has played a few teams this season similar to a St. Mary's with the way that the SEC defenses are. So we're going to break down St. Mary's, Grand Canyon, and then break down College of Charleston, and then look at St. Mary's and Grand Canyon as well. But I don't think that the teams that Alabama is playing against for the bracket scare me. I think that Alabama got a pretty favorable draw as it relates to the teams and the styles, because styles make fights for this NCAA tournament. And just as important as the seed you get is where the other teams and what seeds they are, right? For example, and it's been much talked about, our friends out east, Auburn is the 4 seed in UConn's bracket. And that bracket is UConn, Florida Atlantic, Northwestern. San Diego State is their 5 seed. Auburn plays Yale, a hot Yale team. So, if Auburn can beat Yale, then they would have the winner of UAB, San Diego State, followed up by the number 1 overall seed for the tournament in 31-3 UConn. You have to prefer Alabama's draw when it comes to Alabama would play St. Mary's / Grand Canyon,
College of Charleston, St. Mary's / Grand Canyon, and then finally North Carolina. I think that Alabama got a little bit more favorable draw when it comes to that standpoint, just the way that the 1 seeds, roll out. And so I think you really have to like Alabama's chances when it comes to that. So going to break down the College of Charleston game in some detail. I'm going to talk through what they do as a team, how Alabama, I think, can have some success in this game. And then we will look a little ahead at the St. Mary's and Grand Canyon game, talk a little bit about that, who I might think will win over there, and then we'll get out of here. So for the first round matchup, as I mentioned, Alabama is going to be playing the College of Charleston. That matchup is going to be on True TV on Friday, March the 22nd at 6:35 Central, 7:35 Eastern. So that's going to be the 7:35 Eastern, 6:35 Central game on True TV, as I mentioned. College of Charleston comes into this game having not lost since February 1st. They currently hold the nation's second longest winning streak behind James Madison at 12 games. James Madison, being at 13 games currently. However, College of Charleston has only played 3 games this season inside the KenPom Top 100. Those 3 games being St. Joseph's sitting at 99, Florida Atlantic sitting at 41, and Duquesne sitting at 86. Duquesne and Florida Atlantic both find themselves in this NCAA tournament. Duquesne and Florida Atlantic were the teams that College of Charleston lost to. Their one win inside the KenPom Top 100 was St. Joseph's. That was an 89-82 margin back on December the 21st. So this is not a College of Charleston team that has many wins over the field. Looking here at the list, there is not a single team which College of Charleston beat this season that is currently in the NCAA tournament. They did play, as I mentioned, 2 teams in the field in Duquesne and Florida Atlantic. They lost to Duquesne 90-22 in the second game of the season, and they lost to Florida Atlantic 90-74 on December the 2nd. So when it comes to their record against the field, it's 0-2. When it comes to their record against the KenPom Top 100, it's 1-2. You have to like those chances. The other thing that you have to really like if you're Alabama coming into this game is College of Charleston plays a style under Pat Kelsey that is Nate Oats-esque. It is another very modern style of basketball where there will be a lot of threes taken. There will be a very fast tempo in this game. And it is very similar to what you're defending in practice every day. College of Charleston gets to those shots a different way, and that's something Nate has talked about, is, they would be digging into the style and seeing how College of Charleston gets those shots off because, each team that plays this modern style of basketball is going to shoot their threes in a different way, is going to get to their free throw or their layups and free throws in a different way. So seeing how to defend because each team is going to do it slightly differently. But at the end of the day, this is a modern style of basketball and is going to be similar to what you defend every day in practice. Additionally, College of Charleston is a team that has the 58th ranked offense and the 176th ranked defense. So this is a team that, since over the last few games, what has drug Alabama's defense down is the inability for its offense to get started. I think this is a great game for that, as College of Charleston is not a good defensive team. There is a very good chance that Alabama can have some success on offense. And as we've talked about, Alabama's even though you don't want this to be the case, at times Alabama's success on offense has led to its success on defense. And I think that this College of Charleston matchup is a really good matchup for Alabama in that sense. That if Alabama can get started on offense and get playing at the rate that it plays at, that they can have some success against this team. Looking here at the numbers, College of Charleston is around top 60 in tempo. They are top 30 in not turning the ball over on offense. They are, very elite when it comes to non-steal turnovers. So, just throwaways, taking care of the ball if it's not taken away from the opposing team. They're 7th in the country in that. The place where they're super elite as well is they take, on average, they're 16th in the country in three-point attempts compared to overall field goal attempts. Alabama is 18th in that stat, so very, very similar numbers on the total of three-pointers taken. They average over 33s taken, so this is a game where it would not surprise me at all if you see upwards of 60, 70 threes taken between both teams combined in this game. This will be a very up-and-down game. The over-under for this game per Vegas is set at a 172. And I read that this is the highest over-under that has happened in a March Madness game since 2005. This is going to be a super up-and-down, super fun game to watch. Whether you're an Alabama fan, whether you're just a March Madness fan, this will be a very fun game to watch just due to the styles that are going to be on the court. One thing that College of Charleston does not do, however, that often teams with this modern style try to do, and I think that it really fits into Alabama's play style, is College of Charleston does not go to the free throw line very often. They actually sit at 333rd in America at free throw attempts compared to field goal attempts. That perfectly fits into how Alabama plays. Alabama has had a propensity in some games to foul a little more than they should. And if College of Charleston is not somebody that hunts out those free throw attempts, purposely gets people in foul trouble and instead plays their style and just plays you straight up, I think that fits into not having Grant Nelson, get some cheap fouls, not having Nick Pringle get some cheap fouls, and having our ability to play the rotation we want to play, not being forced into a rotation due to the foul numbers. The other thing that Nate Oats talked about, and I mentioned it just a bit earlier, was that this is going to be the first game since the Texas A&M game that Alabama will have its full roster healthy with nobody on a minutes restriction. Over the last while, we've had Latrell Wrightsell out with a concussion. We've had Rylan Griffin out with a calf. Only playing on Saturday 2 weeks ago. Then on Friday in the SEC tournament, having the early exit against Florida. And then now not playing until the next Friday. Alabama gets to go about 2 weeks only playing one game. That's going to allow them to get their legs under them completely, fully rested and healthy, after all the guards playing the substantial minutes that we've talked about over and over. It's also going to allow Rylan and Latrell to be fully healthy going into this game. And I think that it's going to allow the team to be fully refreshed going into this tournament. And I think that's exactly what this team needs. This team needs the break, needs the refresher, because the end of the season with the minutes restrictions and short-staffed backcourt that we had really took a toll on this team. And you could see that later in the season. It didn't seem like Mark had the same bounce. He wasn't finishing at the same level around the rim. It seemed like some people were a step slow on offense, which was causing the offense to lag behind, which, as we've talked about, causes the defense to lag behind. So I think that this game really, all in all, fits Alabama's style very, very well. I think that this game will be very up and down, and I think that Alabama has a really good chance of winning this game. I think that this 13 matchup for Alabama is exactly what you want. KenPom has it rated as Alabama as an 11-point victor. I think that if Alabama can play its style on offense, I like it somewhere more in the 15-point range. If Alabama does not play to its intensity on offense and allows College of Charleston to get what it wants on offense, this could be a very, very close game. So I will say that I think that Alabama has a very good shot of winning this game. All of the analytics that you look at for Alabama is that they beat the teams they should beat, and the teams where it's a very close matchup, a KenPom, top 30 style matchup, that's where Alabama struggles. So, the statistics would tell you that Alabama would have some success in this game. Obviously, as I mentioned, College of Charleston only having one win in the KenPom top 100 and no wins against the field. You have to like our chances against a team that has shown that thus far, even if they are on a 12-game winning streak. So I do think that Alabama can come out with this game victorious, but we will have to see what happens on Friday night. So for the other matchup in Alabama's little 4-pod, and I don't remember if I forgot to mention, this matchup is in Spokane, Washington, where Gonzaga is located. So for anybody making the trip, this is in Spokane, Washington. I will not be making the trip up to Spokane. However, if we do make it to Los Angeles, I have been looking at travel plans, and I do plan to try to make the trip out to Los Angeles if we can get past the round of 32 and back to the Sweet 16. So I am making plans to try to make the Sweet 16 in LA. It's going to be a long travel, but I do plan to try to make that if possible. However, I don't think the Spokane is in the cards. So the other two teams for our 4-pod, as I mentioned, are St. Mary's as the 5 seed and Grand Canyon as the 12 seed. St. Mary's is a team that currently sits at 26-7. They only have one loss since December 23rd, and it was on the last regular season game of the year to Gonzaga at home. They avenged that loss in the championship game of the WCC final, winning it by 9. So, they have just one loss in conference. They have just one loss this calendar year. St. Mary's is a very hot team that plays a much different style than College of Charleston. We just talked through College of Charleston and the style in which they play. St. Mary's plays a completely different style than that. St. Mary's currently sits as the 358th slowest team in the country out of 362 teams. They are one of the slowest teams in the country, and they are a much better defensive team than they are offensive team. Per KenPom, they currently sit at 45th in offense and 16th in defense. The place where they are elite of elite is at rebounding. They're 3rd in offensive rebounding and 2nd in defensive rebounding. So this is a team that can control the game and control the pace based off of how they rebound and then the pace of which they put it on offense. This is a team that also does a really, really good job at their effective field goal percentage as well as their 2-point defense. Their 2-point defense sits at 43.6%, which is 5th in the country. They're 3rd in effective field goal percentage. This isn't a very elite defense. Their 3-point defense is not quite as good as their 2-point defense. However, they are elite at running teams off the 3-point line. They are 8th in the country at 3-pointers allowed compared to 2-pointers allowed. So if Alabama does end up matching up with St. Mary's, I think you will have a completely different game as compared to that College of Charleston matchup. Right? I think that St. Mary's will give you a completely different output. Whereas the College of Charleston has had quite a few games creep up into the high 70s. I think even one game up into the 80 possession range. St. Mary's has just three games that have hit 70 possessions on the season, one of those being a double overtime game that only hit 77 possessions. This team plays incredibly, incredibly slow. In their last 3 games, they had 59 possessions, 62, and 63 possessions. So if Alabama does end up playing St. Mary's, it will be a clash of styles where Alabama will be trying to speed up the game and St. Mary's will be trying to slow down the game. And it will be who can dictate the pace and the tempo of the game, who can do the best on the rebounding battle, because if St. Mary's has the ability to rebound at the rate that they are capable of and that they have throughout the course of the season and slow down the game, then can Alabama, lock down and defend on defense, as well as score enough points, and more importantly, not get into a situation where they are one and done on offense. They take one shot, St. Mary's gets the rebound, and then Alabama's defending the rest of the game. Because what it will be is Alabama will be in that defensive stance for the majority of the game, and you potentially could start to see some of those defensive issues start to creep in. Hopefully that's not the case, but that's just something to kind of watch for if St. Mary's does win and make it to that second round matchup. However, in order for St. Mary's to get to that second round matchup, they will be playing Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon currently sits at 29-4. They are coached by Bryce Drew, which is the brother of Scott Drew, the Baylor coach, and they have done a really good job this season. They have wins over KenPom number 70, San Francisco. They have a loss by 7 to South Carolina. They have a win over KenPom number 21, San Diego State. And they have a win over number 95, Louisiana Tech. By the looks of it here, they have 2 games against teams that are in the NCAA tournament, I should say, in San Diego State and South Carolina, and they were 1-1 in those games. But as I mentioned, they are 3-1 against KenPom top 100 teams. So when you compare that to the College of Charleston matchup, Grand Canyon is a little better than that, or than College of Charleston. Grand Canyon as well is a slightly better defensive team than offensive, not quite at the level of St. Mary's where it's about 30 spots better. On the Grand Canyon side, it's just over 10 spots better on defense, but Grand Canyon does like to play a little faster. Grand Canyon sits at 74th in tempo, so this will also be a game where you will see a fight between Grand Canyon and St. Mary's as to who can control the pace of this game. My gut says the pace of this game will be very slow. Looking at the possession numbers from some of the past games from Grand Canyon, their last game was 80 possessions against UT Arlington. But prior to that, it was 69, 60, 62, 60. So they have had quite a few games here recently where the possessions were substantially slowed down, and it seems that they are not somebody that, even though they do play fast, they do not have to play fast. And so because of that, it would not surprise me at all if this is a much lower possession game. But with a lower possession game, if Grand Canyon can hit some shots and have St. Mary's playing from behind, typically a team that plays at a much slower pace does not do as well playing from behind. And with March Madness, again, styles make fights. You think back to the UMBC upset over Virginia. A big reason why that UMB upset over Virginia ends up happening is UMBC gets a lead. Virginia was just not built to score with them. UMBC got a lead, and Virginia was playing from behind the majority of that game, and they just never caught up. Virginia, notoriously is somebody that plays very slow on offense and just a more defensive style of basketball. And UMBC scores and has Virginia playing from behind and not being able to lead defense into offense, and they're able to take advantage of that and win the game. I think Grand Canyon has the ability, if Grand Canyon can shoot at the way that they are capable of. Grand Canyon is 5th in the country when it comes to free throw attempts per game. So I think that they have a good chance of getting to the line, getting easy points from the line. Grand Canyon is 10th in the country at effective field goal percentage, 10th in the country at 2-point percentage. That's not at all, not terribly far behind where St. Mary's is. St. Mary's is in the top 5. Grand Canyon's in the top 10 in both of those categories. Grand Canyon, I think, definitely has a good shot of beating St. Mary's in this game. They will have to make shots. They will have to play to their potential. But I think when you look at the games that they have played thus far this season, they've played teams and played in some big matchups that prepare them for this style of game in March. So I do think that will be a very good game. The comparison of the Alabama-Charleston game compared to the Grand Canyon-St. Mary's game will be night and dark. One game, may get up into the 80 possession range. One game may barely cross 60 possessions. So in terms of the style of basketball played in that back-to-back matchup, will be very interesting to watch for anybody that's going to be watching on TV. So I will be interested to see who wins both matchups. Obviously, we'll be cheering on Alabama in that College of Charleston matchup. But then if Alabama does win, we'll be watching that St. Mary's Grand Canyon game to see who the second-round matchup will be against. I think that either team, whether it be St. Mary's or Grand Canyon, will give Alabama a much different game than College of Charleston. Although I will say the defensive nature of the SEC this season, when it comes to your South Carolinas, your Tennessees, your Auburns, those teams help, even your A&Ms, those teams help prepare Alabama and the non-conference, help prepare Alabama for these games in March. So I do think that whether it's St. Mary's or Grand Canyon, Alabama has played games thus far to this season that prepare you for these games in March. And I think that you have a really, really good chance of winning back-to-back games. And if you can win back-to-back games, you make your third Sweet 16 in 4 years. And you just continue to move forward and advance further and further. And we see if Nate Oats can finally crack the Sweet 16 curse, as only one team has made the Elite Eight. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've got these 2 games in Spokane. First things first, got to beat College of Charleston. So we'll be watching that game on a Friday. No matter the result, I will be recording an episode either on Friday night, probably actually on Saturday. Probably will record it early on Saturday, put it out midday on Saturday, breaking down the College of Charleston game as well as the St. Mary's and Grand Canyon game, and then looking forward, if Alabama wins, to that next round matchup, right? So going to be doing that following each game here moving forward. We'll have a breakdown of the Alabama game, and then if I know who the matchup is going to be against, if Alabama wins, then I will break down that opponent's game as well, just so that we can look at what happened in the game prior and what got us to that point. So that is all that I have for the episode today. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, listening, subscribing, and following along in all of the writing and all of the podcasts that I've been putting out this year. I will continue throughout the rest of March Madness, as well as, even when Alabama gets put out, expect more content from me. We've got spring football getting started, so going to be breaking down football here coming up. Obviously, this is going to be focused on basketball until the team, going to be following the team as far as they can make it. And then we will shift our focus to baseball and football, as the baseball team just got a big series win over University of Tennessee for the first series win for Rob Bond under the SEC. So, going to be breaking down football and baseball, once basketball season is over. But thank you so much, everybody, for listening, watching, commenting, subscribing. If you have any questions, comments, anything, please feel free to throw them down below. Shoot me a message on Twitter, on Substack, however you want to get in touch with me. And I will catch you everyone in the next episode. Peace.